She wasn't in the formation photo, until the commander held it up and cried. Rows of soldiers stood proud in formation. Medals gleamed. Speeches echoed across the field. But she wasn't there, left off the list, her name never mentioned. Until the commander stepped up to the mic, paused mid-sentence, and looked toward the crowd. "There's someone missing," he said. He called her name. She stepped forward, confused, unsure, until he took off his own medal and pinned it on her chest. Without her, none of us would be here. The crowd erupted. And the soldier they left out? She became the one they'd never forget. From which part of the world are you watching this video today? If you appreciate stories about recognition long overdue, quiet heroes finally being seen, and leaders who remember what truly matters, consider subscribing for more content that celebrates those whose contributions are sometimes overlooked but never forgotten. The morning sun cast brilliant light across the parade field at Fort Independence as the entire 3rd Brigade prepared for what would be the most significant ceremony in the unit's recent history. Hundreds of soldiers stood in perfect formation, their dress uniforms immaculate, their medals and ribbons gleaming in the crisp autumn air. The ceremony would honor the brigade's extraordinary performance during a challenging deployment where their actions had saved countless lives and achieved objectives that many had deemed impossible. Among the crowd of family members, distinguished visitors, and media representatives, one person watched from the edge of the assembly area, uninvited and unnamed on any official list. Sergeant First Class Rebecca Martinez adjusted her position behind the maintenance building, close enough to see the ceremony, but far enough away to avoid drawing attention to her presence. She had not been included in the formation, her name absent from the awards list, her contributions to the brigade's success unrecognized by the official planning committee that had organized this celebration of military excellence and heroism. Brigade formation, attention, commanded Command Sergeant Major Thompson, his voice carrying across the field with the authority of 30 years of military service. The sea of soldiers snapped to attention with precision that reflected months of preparation for this momentous occasion. Martinez watched the ceremony begin with mixed emotions. She felt pride in her unit's achievements and genuine happiness for her fellow soldiers who were receiving well-deserved recognition. But she also felt the sting of exclusion, the pain of being overlooked despite contributions that she knew had been crucial to the mission's success. Colonel James Harrison, the brigade commander, approached the podium with the bearing of a leader who had guided his soldiers through some of the most challenging operations in recent military history. His weathered face showed the strain of command decisions that had affected thousands of lives, but also the satisfaction of knowing his unit had performed with extraordinary courage and effectiveness. Distinguished guests, family members, and soldiers of the fighting 3rd Brigade, Colonel Harrison began, his voice carrying across the field through the public address system. We gather today to honor the extraordinary courage, dedication, and sacrifice that defined our recent deployment. The soldiers standing before you represent the finest traditions of the United States Army. Martinez listened to the opening remarks while remembering her own role in the deployment that was being celebrated. As the brigade's logistics coordination specialist, she had worked 18-hour days to ensure that critical supplies reached remote outposts under constant threat of enemy attack. Her innovative routing solutions and risk assessment protocols had prevented supply shortages that could have resulted in mission failure and significant casualties. During our 10-month deployment, this brigade faced challenges that tested every aspect of our training, our equipment, and our resolve, Colonel Harrison continued. Enemy forces employed sophisticated tactics designed to disrupt our operations and endanger our personnel. But through exceptional teamwork, innovative thinking, and unwavering commitment to our mission, we achieved objectives that exceeded all expectations. The ceremony proceeded with precision as various awards were presented to soldiers who had distinguished themselves through acts of courage, leadership, and technical excellence. Martinez knew many of the recipients personally and understood that their recognition was well-deserved. But she also knew that her own contributions, while less visible, had been equally critical to the mission's success. The Bronze Star Medal is awarded to Staff Sergeant Michael Torres for exceptional meritorious service during combat operations. The award's narrator announced as Torres stepped forward to receive recognition for his leadership during a particularly dangerous convoy operation that had delivered critical supplies to an isolated outpost. Martinez remembered that convoy operation vividly. She had spent 3 days analyzing route options, coordinating with intelligence personnel, and developing contingency plans that had enabled Torres and his team to successfully complete their mission despite sophisticated enemy ambushes and improvised explosive device threats along primary supply routes. The Army Commendation Medal is awarded to Specialist Lisa Chun for superior technical performance during network security operations. The narrator continued as Chun received recognition for her cybersecurity work that had protected critical communication systems from enemy electronic warfare attacks. Martinez had worked closely with Chun to develop the communication protocols and backup systems that had ensured continuous connectivity between field units and higher headquarters. Her logistics coordination had included arranging for specialized equipment and technical support that had enabled Chin's cybersecurity innovations. The awards ceremony continued for over an hour as dozens of soldiers received recognition for various achievements during the deployment. Martinez felt genuine pride in their accomplishments while gradually accepting that her own contributions would remain unrecognized by the official ceremony. The Meritorious Service Medal is awarded to Captain David Kim for exceptional leadership during humanitarian operations. The narrator announced as Kim stepped forward to receive recognition for coordinating relief efforts that had provided emergency assistance to civilian populations affected by the conflict. Martinez's logistics work had been fundamental to Kim's humanitarian success. She had coordinated the procurement, transportation, and distribution of thousands of tons of humanitarian supplies under dangerous conditions, often working directly with local civilian contractors and international relief organizations to ensure effective delivery of aid materials. As the individual awards concluded, Colonel Harrison returned to the podium to address the broader themes of unit success and collective achievement. His remarks would focus on the teamwork and shared sacrifice that had made the deployment successful. The awards we have presented today recognize individual excellence, Colonel Harrison said, but our success was fundamentally the result of collective effort. Every soldier in this brigade contributed to our achievements, often in ways that don't appear in official reports or mission summaries. Martinez felt a momentary hope that the colonel's comments might lead to broader recognition, but she understood that ceremonies like this followed established protocols that focused on documented achievements and official recommendations rather than comprehensive assessment of all contributions. Before we conclude today's ceremony, Colonel Harrison continued, I want to share something with you that has been weighing on my mind since we returned from deployment. The colonel paused, looking out over the formation with an expression that suggested internal struggle. He reached into his uniform pocket and withdrew a printed photograph that Martinez couldn't see clearly from her distant vantage point. This is the official photograph of our brigade leadership during the deployment, Colonel Harrison said, holding up the image. It shows the officers and senior non-commissioned officers who were recognized as the key personnel responsible for our mission success. Martinez watched with growing curiosity as the colonel's voice took on a different tone, one that suggested emotional intensity rather than ceremonial formality. But as I look at this photograph, I realize it's incomplete. Colonel Harrison continued, his voice beginning to carry traces of emotion that were unusual for such formal occasions. There's someone missing from this picture, someone whose contributions were absolutely essential to everything we accomplished. The formation remained at attention, but Martinez could sense a subtle shift in the ceremony's atmosphere as the colonel's unexpected deviation from the planned program created anticipation throughout the assembled crowd. During our deployment, while the rest of us were focused on tactical operations and immediate mission requirements, one person was working behind the scenes to solve problems that could have derailed our entire effort, Colonel Harrison said, his voice growing stronger with conviction. Martinez felt her heart rate increase as she realized the colonel's comments might be leading toward recognition she had never expected. But she remained cautious, understanding that many people had contributed to the mission's success in ways that weren't officially documented. This person worked 18-hour days, 7 days a week, for 10 months straight, Colonel Harrison continued. While we slept, she was coordinating with suppliers, contractors, and logistics personnel around the world to ensure that our soldiers had the equipment, supplies, and support they needed to complete their missions. The use of feminine pronouns caused Martinez to step forward slightly, though she remained hidden behind the maintenance building. Her pulse quickened as she began to suspect that the colonel might be referring to her logistics work. When conventional supply chains failed due to enemy action, she developed alternative routing solutions that kept critical supplies flowing to our forward positions, Colonel Harrison said, his voice now carrying clear emotional weight. When communication systems were compromised, she coordinated backup networks that maintained our operational connectivity. Martinez realized with growing certainty that Colonel Harrison was describing her contributions to the deployment. But she remained confused about why he would address these contributions during a ceremony where she hadn't been included in the official recognition process. When local contractors were threatened by enemy forces, she personally negotiated agreements that ensured continued support for our humanitarian operations, the colonel continued. When supply shortages threatened to compromise our mission, she found solutions that seemed impossible according to standard logistics procedures. The specificity of Colonel Harrison's descriptions matched Martinez's work so precisely that she began to emerge from behind the building, though she remained far from the formation and uncertain about the colonel's intentions. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and soldiers of the Fighting 3rd Brigade, Colonel Harrison said, his voice now carrying unmistakable emotion. Our deployment was successful because of the extraordinary dedication of Sergeant First Class Rebecca Martinez. Martinez felt shock and disbelief as her name echoed across the parade field through the public address system. Hundreds of heads turned in various directions as people searched for the person the colonel was naming. Sergeant Martinez, Colonel Harrison called out, his voice carrying across the field. Would you please join us? Martinez hesitated, uncertain whether she had heard correctly and unsure about appropriate protocol for responding to such an unexpected invitation. She had not been prepared for public recognition and felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Rebecca Martinez, Colonel Harrison repeated, scanning the crowd with obvious intention to locate her. Please come forward. Martinez began walking toward the formation, her mind racing as she tried to understand what was happening and why the colonel was recognizing her contributions when she had been excluded from all official ceremonies and award recommendations. As she approached the formation, Martinez could see tears forming in Colonel Harrison's eyes. His emotional state was unprecedented in her experience with military ceremonies, which typically maintained strict formal dignity and emotional restraint. Sergeant Martinez, Colonel Harrison said as she reached the edge of the formation, please join me at the podium. Martinez walked across the parade field with growing awareness that hundreds of people were watching her approach. The formality of the ceremony had been completely disrupted by the colonel's unexpected recognition, but the assembled crowd seemed to understand that something significant was happening. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Harrison said as Martinez reached the podium, I need to tell you something that isn't in any official report or award recommendation. The colonel paused, looking directly at Martinez with an expression that combined gratitude, regret, and determination. During our deployment, there were 3 separate occasions when our mission came close to catastrophic failure, Colonel Harrison continued. Each time, Sergeant Martinez's logistics innovations prevented disasters that could have resulted in significant casualties and mission compromise. Martinez stood beside the podium, still uncertain about what was happening, but beginning to understand that the colonel was providing recognition that had been absent from official channels. The first crisis occurred when enemy forces destroyed our primary supply depot, Colonel Harrison explained. Standard logistics procedures would have required a 2-week resupply operation that would have left our forward units without critical equipment during active combat operations. Martinez remembered that crisis vividly. She had worked for 48 hours straight to coordinate emergency resupply using civilian contractors, alternative transportation methods, and creative procurement solutions that had restored supply levels within 72 hours. Sergeant Martinez developed an alternative supply network using local contractors and innovative transportation methods that restored our operational capability within 3 days. Colonel Harrison continued. Her solutions saved our mission and probably saved lives. The colonel's voice grew more emotional as he continued describing specific examples of Martinez's contributions that had been crucial to mission success but absent from official recognition processes. The second crisis occurred when enemy cyber attacks compromised our communication networks and threatened to isolate our forward units from command coordination, Colonel Harrison said. Sergeant Martinez coordinated the procurement and installation of backup communication systems that maintained our operational connectivity. Martinez had worked with communication specialists and civilian contractors to establish alternative networks using equipment and procedures that weren't part of standard military systems. Her logistics coordination had enabled technical solutions that preserved mission effectiveness. The third crisis occurred when local contractors were threatened by enemy forces and withdrew their support for our humanitarian operations, Colonel Harrison continued. Standard procedures would have required suspending civilian assistance programs that were critical to our strategic objectives. Martinez had spent weeks negotiating with local leaders, international relief organizations, and military contractors to develop alternative arrangements that had maintained humanitarian operations while ensuring civilian safety. Sergeant Martinez personally negotiated agreements with alternative contractors and international organizations that enabled us to continue our humanitarian mission, Colonel Harrison explained. Her diplomatic and logistics skills preserved operations that affected thousands of civilian lives. As Colonel Harrison described her contributions in detail, Martinez began to understand why she had been excluded from official recognition processes. Her work had been so unconventional and creative that it didn't fit standard categories for military awards and commendations. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Harrison said, turning to face Martinez directly. Every soldier who received recognition today deserved their awards. But their achievements were only possible because of the foundation that Sergeant Martinez created through her extraordinary logistics work. The colonel reached up to his own uniform and began removing his personal medal, a silver star that he had earned during a previous deployment for exceptional gallantry under enemy fire. Sergeant Martinez, Colonel Harrison said, his voice now clearly emotional. Military regulations don't provide appropriate recognition for the kind of innovative, persistent, behind-the-scenes work that you performed during our deployment. Martinez watched in amazement as the colonel held up his personal silver star, a decoration that represented the highest level of individual courage and sacrifice. But I know, and everyone who understands what really happened during our deployment knows, that your contributions were absolutely essential to our success, Colonel Harrison continued. Without your work, none of us would be here today to receive recognition. Colonel Harrison stepped forward and began pinning his personal silver star to Martinez's uniform, a gesture that was completely unprecedented in her experience with military ceremonies and recognition procedures. This medal represents my recognition of your extraordinary service, Colonel Harrison said, completing the transfer of his personal decoration, and my apology for institutional failures that prevented appropriate recognition through official channels. The parade field erupted in spontaneous applause as hundreds of soldiers, family members, and distinguished guests recognized the significance of what they had witnessed. Martinez felt overwhelmed by the unexpected recognition and the colonel's extraordinary gesture. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Harrison announced over the continuing applause, Sergeant First Class Rebecca Martinez represents the highest traditions of military service. Her dedication, innovation, and selfless commitment to mission success embody everything we value in the United States Army. Martinez stood beside the podium, wearing Colonel Harrison's personal silver star, as the crowd continued applauding. She felt a complex mixture of gratitude, validation, and emotional overwhelm at receiving recognition she had never expected. Sergeant Martinez, Colonel Harrison said, turning to address her directly. Do you have anything you'd like to say? Martinez approached the microphone with hesitation, unprepared for public speaking at such a significant ceremony. Her voice trembled as she began to respond to the unexpected recognition. Sir, and distinguished guests, Martinez began, I never expected this recognition, and I'm deeply grateful for Colonel Harrison's acknowledgement of my work. She paused, trying to organize thoughts that were racing through her mind as she processed the significance of what had just happened. I want to emphasize that everything I accomplished during our deployment was only possible because of the support and cooperation of soldiers throughout our brigade, Martinez continued. Logistics work succeeds through teamwork, not individual effort. Her comments reflected both genuine humility and accurate understanding of how complex military operations succeeded through collective effort rather than individual achievement. I also want to say that there are probably other soldiers whose contributions were equally important but haven't been recognized through official channels, Martinez added. Military success depends on many people whose work doesn't appear in official reports. Colonel Harrison nodded approvingly at Martinez's emphasis on collective achievement and recognition of others whose contributions might be overlooked by formal recognition processes. Finally, Martinez concluded, I want to thank Colonel Harrison for understanding that military effectiveness requires supporting innovative approaches and recognizing diverse contributions to mission success. The ceremony concluded with additional applause as Martinez returned to her position beside the podium, still wearing Colonel Harrison's personal silver star and still processing the extraordinary recognition she had received. As the formation was dismissed and people began to disperse, Martinez found herself surrounded by soldiers, family members, and distinguished guests who wanted to congratulate her and learn more about her contributions to the deployment's success. Sergeant Martinez approached Major Patricia Wells, the brigade's operations officer. I want to apologize for the oversight in our awards recommendations. Your work was absolutely crucial to our success, and it should have been recognized through official channels. Martinez appreciated Major Wells's acknowledgement while understanding that military recognition processes were complex and sometimes failed to capture all significant contributions. Ma'am, I understand that awards processes focus on documented achievements and official recommendations, Martinez replied. I'm grateful for Colonel Harrison's recognition, regardless of official procedures. Your attitude reflects exactly the kind of professionalism that made your logistics work so effective, Major Wells observed. You focused on mission success rather than personal recognition. Similar conversations continued throughout the afternoon as people sought to understand Martinez's contributions and express appreciation for work that had been crucial but largely invisible to most personnel. Sergeant Martinez approached Captain David Kim, who had received the Meritorious Service Medal for his humanitarian work. I want you to know that my humanitarian operations would have been impossible without your logistics support. Martinez felt validation as various soldiers acknowledged her contributions to their own recognized achievements, confirming that her work had been foundational to multiple aspects of the deployment's success. Captain Kim, your humanitarian work had direct impact on civilian populations, Martinez replied. I'm glad my logistics support enabled your operations. But your logistics work was equally important, Kim insisted. You created the foundation that made all of our achievements possible. As the day progressed, Martinez began to understand that Colonel Harrison's recognition had accomplished more than just acknowledging her individual contributions. It had highlighted the importance of recognizing diverse types of service and the value of behind-the-scenes work that enabled more visible achievements. Martinez, Colonel Harrison approached her as the ceremony area began to clear. I want to explain why I felt compelled to provide this recognition despite the disruption to our planned ceremony. Martinez listened with interest as the colonel prepared to explain his unprecedented decision to transfer his personal decoration and dramatically alter the ceremony's format. After we returned from deployment, I spent weeks reviewing our operations and trying to understand why we had been so successful when similar units had faced significant challenges, Colonel Harrison explained. The colonel's analytical approach to understanding mission success reflected his commitment to learning from experience and improving future operations. Every analysis pointed to the same conclusion, Colonel Harrison continued. Our success depended on logistics innovations and creative problem-solving that went far beyond standard military procedures. Martinez understood that her unconventional approaches had been necessary because standard procedures weren't adequate for the complex challenges they had faced during deployment. When I realized that official recognition processes had completely overlooked the person whose work was most critical to our success, I knew I had to take personal action, Colonel Harrison explained. The colonel's decision to use his personal decoration and disrupt the ceremony reflected his understanding that leadership sometimes required going beyond institutional procedures to ensure appropriate recognition. Sir, I appreciate your recognition more than I can express, Martinez replied. But I want you to know that I would have continued serving regardless of whether my contributions were acknowledged. I know that, Colonel Harrison said. And that's exactly why you deserved recognition. The best soldiers serve for mission success, not for personal recognition. The colonel's observation reflected understanding that the most valuable military personnel were those who focused on accomplishment rather than advancement or recognition. Martinez, Colonel Harrison continued, I'm recommending you for advanced logistics training and promotion to Master Sergeant. Your innovative approaches and problem-solving abilities are too valuable to limit to your current assignment. The recommendation represented both recognition of Martinez's demonstrated capabilities and opportunity for expanded responsibilities where her skills could have broader impact. Sir, I appreciate the opportunity, Martinez replied, but I'd like to request assignment to develop training programs that help other logistics personnel develop creative problem-solving skills. Colonel Harrison smiled at Martinez's response, recognizing her focus on institutional improvement rather than personal advancement. That's exactly the kind of thinking that makes you valuable, Martinez, Colonel Harrison observed. You understand that individual success should contribute to broader institutional capability. The conversation reflected Martinez's understanding that her experiences could benefit other logistics personnel who might face similar challenges, requiring innovative solutions and creative approaches. Over the following weeks, Martinez found herself at the center of discussions about military recognition processes and the importance of acknowledging diverse contributions to mission success. Her story had attracted attention from senior leadership who were evaluating how to improve identification and recognition of critical but less visible work. Martinez, your situation has highlighted gaps in our recognition processes, explained Brigadier General Patricia Foster during a meeting about awards and recognition procedures. We're developing new approaches to ensure that innovative behind-the-scenes work receives appropriate acknowledgement. Martinez appreciated the institutional attention while emphasizing that effective recognition required understanding diverse types of contribution rather than just expanding existing award categories. Ma'am, I think the key is ensuring that leadership understands how different types of work contribute to mission success, Martinez replied. Recognition follows understanding. Your perspective reflects exactly the kind of insight we need for improving our recognition processes, General Foster observed. You understand both the practical requirements of effective service and the institutional challenges of appropriate acknowledgement. The discussion continued as senior leadership sought to understand how to systematize recognition for innovative work while maintaining the integrity of traditional awards and commendations. Several months later, Martinez's story had become part of leadership training programs that emphasized the importance of recognizing diverse contributions and understanding how various types of work supported mission success. The Martinez case study demonstrates that effective leadership requires looking beyond obvious achievements to understand foundational work that enables success, explained Colonel Patricia Wells during a leadership seminar at the Army's Command and General Staff College. Martinez's experience had become an educational tool for developing leaders who could recognize and develop diverse talents within their units while ensuring that all significant contributions received appropriate acknowledgement. What made Colonel Harrison's recognition so powerful, Wells continued, was his understanding that leadership sometimes requires going beyond institutional procedures to ensure justice and appropriate recognition. The case study emphasized that effective leadership involved moral courage to challenge systems when necessary, while maintaining institutional integrity and mission focus. As Master Sergeant Rebecca Martinez stood before a new group of logistics specialists during her first training session at the Army Logistics University, she reflected on the journey that had brought her from overlooked contributor to recognized expert, whose story was influencing military education and recognition processes. The fundamental principle of logistics excellence, Martinez explained to her students, is that mission success depends on creative problem-solving and persistent innovation, regardless of whether your work receives official recognition. Her teaching emphasized professional dedication and technical excellence while acknowledging that the most important work often occurred behind the scenes without immediate acknowledgement or reward. Your mission is supporting the soldiers who depend on your logistics expertise, Martinez continued. Personal recognition is secondary to mission accomplishment, but effective leaders will understand and acknowledge your contributions. Her approach to training reflected lessons learned from her own experience about the relationship between individual excellence and institutional recognition. Remember, Martinez concluded, the most rewarding recognition comes from knowing that your work enabled mission success and contributed to your fellow soldiers' safety and effectiveness. The photograph from that ceremony, initially missing Martinez but later including her through Colonel Harrison's intervention, became a symbol of the importance of recognizing all contributions to military success. It was displayed in logistics training facilities throughout the Army as a reminder that effective recognition required comprehensive understanding of how diverse talents and efforts combined to achieve mission objectives. Martinez's story continued to influence military recognition processes and leadership development programs, demonstrating that exceptional leadership sometimes required challenging institutional procedures to ensure that all valuable contributions received appropriate acknowledgement. Her journey from excluded contributor to recognized expert represented the potential that existed when leaders had the courage to look beyond formal processes to understand and acknowledge the full scope of contributions that enabled military success. The soldier who wasn't in the formation photo had become the one whose story would never be forgotten, serving as inspiration for leaders who understood that effective recognition required moral courage, comprehensive awareness, and commitment to ensuring that all valuable service received appropriate acknowledgement regardless of institutional barriers or traditional limitations. The months following the ceremony brought unprecedented changes to military recognition procedures throughout the Army as Martinez's story influenced policy development at the highest levels of leadership. Her case had exposed systematic gaps in how the military identified and acknowledged innovative contributions that didn't fit traditional award categories, prompting comprehensive reviews of recognition processes across all branches of service. The Martinez case has fundamentally changed how we approach military recognition, explained General Patricia Foster during a Pentagon briefing attended by senior leaders from all military services. Her story demonstrates that our current systems may be missing critical contributions that are essential to mission success but don't conform to traditional award criteria. The briefing sparked intensive discussions about developing new recognition frameworks that could capture innovative behind-the-scenes work while maintaining the integrity of established award systems. Martinez's experience had revealed that some of the most valuable military contributions occurred in gray areas between traditional categories. What makes Sergeant Martinez's situation particularly significant, continued General Foster, is that her exclusion from recognition wasn't due to oversight or administrative error. Her contributions genuinely didn't fit existing award criteria, even though they were absolutely critical to mission success. The Pentagon discussions led to formation of a special committee tasked with developing supplementary recognition programs that could acknowledge innovative contributions without diluting traditional awards for courage, leadership, and technical excellence. Martinez was invited to serve as a consultant for the committee's work. The challenge is creating recognition systems that encourage innovation and creative problem-solving while maintaining clear standards for traditional military excellence, Martinez explained during her first committee meeting. We need approaches that acknowledge diverse types of contribution without creating confusion about what the military values most. Her insight reflected understanding that effective recognition systems needed to be comprehensive without becoming meaningless through over-inclusion or unclear criteria. The committee's work required balancing innovation with institutional integrity. Sergeant Martinez's perspective is invaluable because she experienced both the exclusion from traditional recognition and the impact of creative leadership response, observed Colonel James Patterson, who chaired the Recognition Review Committee. Her experience provides practical insight into how recognition affects motivation and institutional effectiveness. The committee's work expanded over several months as they studied recognition practices from other military organizations, corporate environments, and academic institutions that faced similar challenges in acknowledging diverse types of contribution and innovation. What we're learning is that effective recognition requires multiple approaches rather than single comprehensive systems, Martinez reported during one committee session. Different types of contribution may require different types of acknowledgement to be meaningful and motivating. Her analysis suggested that the military might need layered recognition approaches that could acknowledge various types of excellence without creating hierarchical confusion or diminishing the significance of traditional awards for combat performance and leadership under fire. The committee's preliminary recommendations included creation of Innovation Excellence Awards for creative problem-solving, behind-the-scenes impact recognition for essential support work, and institutional contribution medals for work that improved organizational effectiveness but didn't fit traditional categories. These new recognition categories would complement rather than replace traditional awards, Martinez explained during committee presentations to senior leadership. The goal is ensuring comprehensive recognition without diluting the significance of established honors. Senior military leadership expressed initial skepticism about expanding recognition systems, concerned that additional awards might diminish the prestige of traditional decorations or create administrative burdens that outweighed their benefits. The risk of recognition inflation is real, acknowledged General Robert Kim during committee discussions. We need to ensure that new recognition approaches maintain meaning and selectivity rather than becoming participation trophies that everyone receives. Martinez addressed these concerns by emphasizing that the proposed innovations focused on identifying previously unrecognized excellence rather than lowering standards or expanding eligibility for existing awards. The goal isn't making recognition easier to achieve, Martinez clarified. The goal is ensuring that all types of military excellence receive appropriate acknowledgement when they meet rigorous standards for impact and innovation. Her explanation helped senior leaders understand that the proposed changes were about comprehensive excellence rather than reduced standards, addressing concerns about maintaining the integrity of military recognition systems. The committee's work attracted attention from military education institutions that were grappling with similar challenges in teaching future leaders about recognizing diverse talents and contributions within their units. Sergeant Martinez's case study has become central to our leadership development curriculum, explained Colonel Patricia Wells at the Army War College. Her experience teaches future leaders about the importance of looking beyond obvious achievements to understand foundational work that enables success. The educational applications of Martinez's story extended beyond recognition procedures to broader lessons about leadership awareness, institutional justice, and the moral courage required to challenge systems when necessary to ensure fairness and effectiveness. What Colonel Harrison demonstrated when he gave Martinez his personal medal, Wells continued, was leadership that goes beyond following procedures to ensuring that the right thing happens even when institutional systems fall short. The case study emphasized that exceptional leadership sometimes required personal initiative to address institutional gaps while working to improve systems for future situations. Harrison's dramatic gesture had created immediate justice while inspiring longer-term reform. Meanwhile, Martinez found herself increasingly involved in developing training programs that would help logistics personnel and other support specialists understand how to document and communicate their contributions in ways that would be more likely to receive institutional recognition. One lesson from my experience, Martinez explained during logistics training sessions, is that innovative work needs to be documented and communicated effectively if it's going to be understood and recognized by leadership who may not be familiar with technical details. Her training emphasized that effective recognition required both excellent performance and clear communication about the impact and significance of that performance. Many valuable contributions were overlooked not because they lacked merit, but because they weren't properly documented or explained. Military leaders are busy people managing complex operations, Martinez continued. If you want your innovative work to be recognized, you need to help them understand why it matters and how it contributes to mission success. The training programs Martinez developed became models for other military specialties that faced similar challenges in ensuring that their technical contributions were understood and acknowledged by leaders from different professional backgrounds. Her approach emphasized practical communication skills alongside technical excellence, recognizing that both were necessary for career advancement and institutional impact in complex military organizations. The most innovative technical work in the world won't receive recognition if leaders don't understand its significance, Martinez observed. Communication is as important as competence for ensuring that your contributions are valued and acknowledged. 6 months after the ceremony, Martinez received an unexpected invitation that would test her growing influence in new circumstances. The Secretary of Defense was hosting an international conference on military innovation and recognition, and Martinez had been selected to represent the United States Army's perspectives on acknowledging diverse contributions to military effectiveness. This conference will include senior military leaders from over 30 allied nations, explained Major General Collins during Martinez's briefing for the international assignment. Your experience provides unique insight into how military organizations can better recognize and develop innovative capabilities. The international conference represented an opportunity for Martinez to share lessons learned from her experience, while learning how other military organizations approached similar challenges with recognition, innovation, and leadership development. Many allied militaries face similar challenges in recognizing diverse types of contribution, Major General Collins continued. Your perspective could influence international approaches to military recognition and talent development. Martinez prepared extensively for the international assignment, studying recognition practices from various military organizations while developing presentations that could communicate lessons learned from her experience to leaders from different cultural and institutional backgrounds. The fundamental principles of effective recognition should be universal, Martinez observed during her preparation. But implementation approaches may need to account for different military traditions and organizational cultures. Her analysis suggested that while specific procedures might vary between military organizations, the underlying principles of comprehensive recognition, leadership awareness, and institutional justice had broad applicability across different national contexts. The international conference proved to be a remarkable learning experience as Martinez discovered that military organizations worldwide faced similar challenges in recognizing innovative behind-the-scenes work while maintaining traditional recognition for courage and leadership under fire. The British Army has developed silent service awards specifically for contributions that are essential but not visible, explained Colonel Sarah Thompson from the Royal Logistics Corps during one conference session. These awards acknowledge that some of the most important military work happens away from public attention. Martinez found the British approach particularly interesting because it created separate recognition categories for different types of contribution rather than trying to fit all excellence into traditional award frameworks. The Australian Defence Force has implemented innovation impact recognition that focuses specifically on creative problem-solving and procedural improvements, added Colonel Michael Chin from the Australian Army. These awards encourage soldiers to develop new approaches rather than just following established procedures. The international discussions revealed that Martinez's experience reflected global challenges in military recognition rather than problems unique to the United States Army. Military organizations worldwide were grappling with similar questions about acknowledging diverse types of excellence. What's particularly valuable about Sergeant Martinez's story, observed General Philippe Dubois from the French Army, is that it demonstrates both the problem of inadequate recognition and the leadership courage necessary to address institutional gaps. The French perspective emphasized that Martinez's case illustrated solutions as well as problems, showing how individual leadership could create immediate justice while inspiring systematic improvements. During her presentation to the international conference, Martinez emphasized that effective recognition required both institutional systems and individual leadership commitment to ensuring comprehensive acknowledgement of valuable contributions. Military effectiveness depends on diverse types of excellence, Martinez explained to the international audience. Recognition systems must be comprehensive enough to acknowledge all significant contributions while maintaining clear standards that preserve the meaning and motivation value of awards. Her presentation included specific recommendations for developing layered recognition approaches that could accommodate various types of contribution without creating confusion or diminishing the significance of traditional military honors. The goal is ensuring that every soldier who contributes significantly to mission success receives appropriate recognition, Martinez continued, while maintaining the special significance of awards for courage under fire and exceptional leadership in combat situations. The international reception of Martinez's presentation was overwhelmingly positive, with several countries expressing interest in implementing similar recognition reforms based on lessons learned from her experience. Sergeant Martinez's insights provide practical guidance for improving military recognition worldwide, observed General Patricia Morrison from the Canadian Army. Her experience demonstrates how individual cases can drive institutional improvements that benefit entire military organizations. The conference concluded with commitments from multiple nations to review their recognition procedures and consider implementing reforms that would better acknowledge diverse types of military contribution and innovation. Martinez returned from the international conference with expanded understanding of global approaches to military recognition and renewed commitment to ensuring that her experience contributed to meaningful improvements in how military organizations identified and acknowledged excellence. What I learned from the international conference, Martinez reported during her briefing to Army leadership, is that our recognition challenges are shared by military organizations worldwide. But I also learned that we have opportunities to lead international efforts to improve military recognition practices. Her report included recommendations for sharing American innovations in military recognition with allied nations while learning from their approaches to similar challenges. The international perspective had revealed both problems and solutions that could enhance military effectiveness globally. The months following the international conference brought news that several allied militaries had implemented recognition reforms inspired by Martinez's experience and the discussions at the conference. Her story was becoming a catalyst for international improvements in military recognition practices. The British Army has created new Essential Service Awards based partly on lessons learned from Sergeant Martinez's case, reported Colonel Patterson during a recognition committee meeting. They specifically cited her experience as inspiration for acknowledging behind-the-scenes contributions. Similar reports arrived from other allied nations that had attended the conference, indicating that Martinez's experience was influencing military recognition practices across multiple countries and military organizations. The Australian Defence Force has implemented Innovation Excellence Awards that explicitly acknowledge creative problem-solving of the type that Sergeant Martinez demonstrated during her deployment, Patterson continued. They've credited her story with helping them understand the importance of recognizing diverse types of military contribution. The international impact of Martinez's experience represented validation that her case had revealed universal challenges in military recognition rather than problems specific to her individual situation or the United States Army. As the first anniversary of the ceremony approached, planning began for a follow-up event that would recognize the institutional changes that had resulted from Martinez's experience and Colonel Harrison's courageous leadership response. We want to celebrate not just Sergeant Martinez's individual contributions, explained Brigadier General Foster, but also the institutional improvements that her case inspired throughout the military recognition system. The anniversary event would highlight new recognition programs, policy changes, and training initiatives that had emerged from lessons learned during Martinez's case, demonstrating how individual experiences could drive meaningful institutional reform. This anniversary ceremony will show how one person's experience can create positive change that benefits thousands of future service members, General Foster continued. Sergeant Martinez's story has become a catalyst for improving military recognition worldwide. The planning process revealed the extensive impact that Martinez's case had generated throughout military recognition systems, leadership development programs, and international cooperation initiatives focused on acknowledging diverse types of military excellence. On the anniversary of the original ceremony, Martinez found herself once again standing before a formation of soldiers, but this time as a recognized expert whose experience had influenced military policy at the highest levels of leadership. 1 year ago, Sergeant Martinez's exclusion from recognition revealed gaps in our military recognition systems, Colonel Harrison said during his anniversary remarks. Today, we celebrate not just her individual excellence, but the institutional improvements that her experience has inspired. The anniversary ceremony included presentations of the new recognition awards that had been developed based on lessons learned from Martinez's case, demonstrating how individual experiences could drive systematic improvements in military justice and effectiveness. The Innovation Excellence Awards being presented today exist because Sergeant Martinez's experience taught us that some types of military contribution don't fit traditional recognition categories, Harrison continued. Her case inspired us to develop more comprehensive approaches to acknowledging military excellence. Martinez watched with satisfaction as soldiers received recognition through new award categories that had been created to address the gaps that her own experience had revealed. Her exclusion from the original ceremony had ultimately led to improvements that would benefit countless future service members. What Sergeant Martinez demonstrated through her response to institutional oversight, Harrison concluded, was that the highest form of military service involves contributing to mission success regardless of whether that contribution receives recognition. But what we learned from her case was that effective military organizations must ensure that all valuable contributions receive appropriate acknowledgement. The anniversary ceremony concluded with Martinez receiving a personal commendation from the Secretary of the Army for her contributions not just to her original deployment, but to the institutional improvements that had resulted from her experience and the recognition reforms she had helped develop. Master Sergeant Martinez represents the finest traditions of military service, the Secretary said during the award presentation. Her technical excellence, professional dedication, and institutional contribution demonstrate that military effectiveness depends on diverse types of excellence, all of which deserve appropriate recognition. As Martinez accepted the commendation, she reflected on the remarkable journey that had begun with exclusion from a ceremony and evolved into international influence on military recognition practices and leadership development. What I've learned through this experience, Martinez said during her response remarks, is that individual cases of injustice can become opportunities for institutional improvement when leaders have the courage to address problems rather than ignore them. Her words emphasized that progress required both individual excellence and institutional commitment to continuous improvement, acknowledging that effective military organizations must be willing to learn from their mistakes and adapt their practices to ensure justice and effectiveness. The recognition I've received is meaningful not just for my individual satisfaction, Martinez continued, but because it represents institutional commitment to ensuring that all valuable military contributions receive appropriate acknowledgement. The ceremony concluded with Martinez understanding that her journey from overlooked contributor to recognized expert had demonstrated both the challenges and possibilities inherent in military service, showing how individual dedication could combine with institutional leadership to create positive change that benefited entire organizations. Her story would continue to influence military recognition practices, leadership development, and institutional reform efforts for years to come, serving as a reminder that effective military organizations must be willing to challenge their own procedures when necessary to ensure justice, acknowledge excellence, and maintain the highest standards of professional recognition and individual development. Master Sergeant Rebecca Martinez had proven that the soldier who wasn't in the formation photo could become the catalyst for institutional change that ensured future soldiers would receive the recognition their contributions deserved, regardless of whether their excellence fit traditional categories or challenged established assumptions about military value and recognition.